on the Egyptian economy, which has been going up and down, and it has been very unpredictable in the past few years. So now we're going to be talking about the role of Canada in helping support and develop in Egypt's economy. We're getting all the details on what's going on with the Canadian support from Fayez Ezeldin, who is the chairman of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce here in Egypt. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ezeldin. First of all, before we delve into the mutual economic relations between the Canadian government and the Egyptian one, let us first talk about the bilateral relations between the two countries. How do you see it right now?
Well, due to what's going on, you see what's happened now is the investment abroad. It's coming from Canada to Egypt. It's a little bit in hold right now. But anyway, what we'd like to say here is that the Canadian Chamber of Commerce try to convince the people which are investing already in Egypt to stay in. And the good news is last year, 2011, the statistics say that the balance between Egypt and Canada, we have a trade over the $1 billion, which is the first time in our history that trade between Egypt and Canada over $1 billion, which is good news for us, regardless what's going on in the region. The other thing is we're trying to do like a protocol or agreement between some NGO in Canada and Egypt and some of education institution in Canada going to come here to open a university, schools, because as you know, the education in Canada, which is the most important thing, we see that Egypt needs education, needs technical assistance in education as well. That's what we're trying to do right now in the meantime.
And so can you elaborate more on the initiative that you're, the projects or the initiatives, or what's going on and how you exactly is going to be the support in terms of the relations between Canada and Egypt's economy?
Okay. I can tell you last month we signed an agreement between the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and OGS, which is the Oil and Gas Skills, which is a company is responsible for all the training for the petroleum sector. This is signed in presence of Mr. Osama Kamal, the Minister of Petroleum and Mineral. We signed this agreement to have, starting from next year, we're going to establish a leadership program for all the petroleum sector, for training the top level and medium level to go to be able to be a leader. We have a problem in what we call it in the governmental sectors, that we don't have programs to increase the possibility to have leaders. You know, we have the first one which is going to be in the over 60. So the second generation, which we like to have it right now. This is what we do in the petroleum sector. We're going to have a school also for the minerals to able to increase what we have here. In Egypt, we have a mineral sector which has been ignored for a period of time. We'd like to have it done in a good way right now. That's what we are doing with them. Second, we open university. We have a university, Canadian University here. We're trying to increase the presence of the education, Canadian education. The other thing we have to do is transfer of technology. We have in Canada technology which is, if we choose the mineral sector, it's like top of the line. If I tell you that half of the mineral companies all over the world exist in Canada, this gives you an idea how important it is. We have a mission going to be in Canada from the 3rd to the 6th of March next month for a big investment conference for mineral and we have government sector going to be there, the Canadian embassy going to be there, Egyptian government represented by the petroleum sector going to be there, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce and NGO going to be there. So this is the first time we're going to put Egypt in the picture of all the people interested in the mining sector in Egypt, which is very good. This I consider one of the things we achieved as a Canadian Chamber of Commerce, to put Egypt in the eye of all the investors coming all over the world for this conference, which is going to be held in Toronto in Canada.
Well, like we feel very happy when we hear that from you, but also, it doesn't look very much like the situation is really encouraging for any foreign investor to come over at this time of the year. I mean, with what's happening here on the ground here in Egypt. But practically speaking, this is the way with any transitional period after any graceful revolution. Things remain the same until there is a promising climate for investors. How do the Canadian investors and entrepreneurs read the political situation and the economic situation here in Egypt? Do they see it the right way? Do you try on your part as the chairman of the chamber, the Canadian Chamber, to try to make it clear, the image for them?
Well, honestly speaking, we try very hard, because don't forget that whatever you see here in the news, even like what's happened in Tahrir or Tahrir Square, or what's happened locally here, the people in Canada or all over the world sees in different ways. Sees that like the whole Egypt in fire, and everybody in the street is not safe, and this sort of thing. This is the media, you know. But let's do it in the other way, in positive way. What we're trying to do in Canada now, we're trying to convince the people that's not Egypt like that. You know, we have a different places which is safe, and you can go everywhere, you can invest. Don't forget that the investor is scared about what's going on everywhere. I do agree with them, but we're trying, because you see the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Canada, it's 175,000 members. So what we're trying to do is trying to, like what I said, that we're going to bring Egyptian people, investors, to go to Canada, trying to put Egypt in the picture. The other thing is the good news that we have Egypt Air going to have a direct line. It's between Egypt and Canada, starting from June, which is, I think, it's going to help us to bring even the Egyptian community in Canada, which is we're trying to do like what you're saying, the second generation, which has been in Canada for 20 years, 30 years, and they didn't see Egypt at all, or they didn't visit Egypt at all. So we're trying to convince them to come. We have a plan to make a program for them to visit Cairo, Sharm el-Sheikh, this sort of thing. So this is what we're trying to do. Investor, bringing them from there to here, trying to give them the possibility about the project which is going to be done very soon. We have, like, if we talk about the mining sector, this is like, it's like a gold mine. We have here in Egypt a very good opportunities, but you see we have to wait until the law of the mining to be established, because we are waiting for the assembly to be elected, and they approve the law, so we can bring the investor. So like we have mine for gold, we have a lot of things in Egypt, which is very good.
How do you see the Egyptian market, and do you think that it's promising? I mean, do you think that Egypt can get up and get out of this economic crisis, and how do you see it in the future, in the next few years?
Well, okay, you see, as you said, I don't know, you or her said about that, it's a period that we have to face, like maybe it's like going to be like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you never know, but it's a transitional period that we have to face it. What I'd like to say, this period we have to face it. So regardless of me or anybody else, we have to face this period. But the most important thing is we have to recover from this period and go ahead with investor. Egypt has a lot of potential. Like when we say in Canada, for example, I can give you a very small, that Egypt signed with a different country in Africa, which we call it COMESA agreement, which is that as Egypt can export to these countries without duties. So some of the companies, we brought it already in Egypt, a Canadian manufacturer, which is they manufacture their product here in Egypt. It's a Canadian product, manufactured here in Egypt, and instead of manufacturing it in Canada, and we export it to African countries, so it comes cheaper. So the Canadian economy is good that we export Canadian product, but manufactured in Egypt. We use the Canadian technology and the Egyptian labor, which is considered to be reasonable in prices, not cheap, but reasonable. So we can have both, which is high technology and reasonable labor in good atmosphere here in Egypt. We export it to COMESA countries. This is one of the things we have done, which is very successful story we have done for Canadian companies. Also, don't forget we have a big companies here working in the petrochemical, like in agri, for example.
Sectors.
Excuse
Very
me?
important sectors here in the country.
Yes. And we are talking about huge project, like if we talk like Agrium, Methanox, it's a Canadian company working here in Egypt, which is like over the figures like $3 to $4 billion investment, Canadian investment here in Egypt, which is very good.
Wow.
So, I mean, if we try to keep this project working, this I consider a success. We don't have to bring more, but at least we keep this project working and safe, and you know, we don't have problems like what's happened if we like to export the gold. All the gold it's in Egypt now has to go to Canada. I don't know if the people know that, because we have to stamp it, and in Canada we have the stock market for the gold, so we have to sell it in Canada over there. So in Egypt we have to export the gold, and this is like we consider last year we export gold of over $700 million, just the gold.
Mr. Ezeldin, as a chairman of the Chamber of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, you look like you're full of ideas, but of course, practically speaking, there should be challenges that will meet you in the future. How do you seem to be or think of overcoming these challenges, future challenges, of course? Have you been in contact with the ministry or with the government? Have they offered any kind of support or assistance while you try to overcome these challenges?
Okay, let me be honest with you. Being an Egyptian, you know, I've been in Canada since 1977 myself, but Egypt is in my heart. It's inside me. And the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, it covers the area of Middle East. It doesn't cover Egypt only. And we choose Egypt to be the head of the Middle East office, which is, I mean, the Canadian Chamber is established in 2006. And since then, we are working like to overcome all the obstacles we have. Of course, the last 2 years, or the last 3 years, let's say, I mean, now it's going to be more than before, but we see it like a challenge. We have to do it. I mean, we have to overcome some of these challenges. Is very minor, like people sometimes supposed to come and they cancel at the last minute, and or if you have a meeting with the minister and the minister changing every like couple of months. So this is some, I consider minor challenges, but the big challenge is to keep the investor, the Canadian investor, our Canadian investment here in Canada, in Egypt, don't leave. I mean, we consider them staying is the most challenging we have. Don't forget that we have some problems of labor problems. For example, factories have problems. We have a problem now of the currency. You cannot transfer certain amount of currency or limited amount. These sort of things make anyone like to invest think twice. That's why I'm trying to say, like we sent it to the Minister of Finance last week, asking them to reconsider the restriction for bringing foreign money with the people. I mean, the people, when they come to Egypt now, they are limited to $10,000 when they enter. I think this is unfair because a lot of peoples bring cash, especially the Arab people. They like to bring cash to invest here, to buy, to do whatever. And we like to say that even every country, you can sign that you have or declare that you have more than 10,000 and you enter with that. And this is good money for Egypt. I mean, it's a foreign currency. So I think we have to reconsider this sort of thing because it's, especially for tourists and the, people, they like to bring cash because Egypt is not like in Canada. Everywhere we can use, we can call it plastic money or credit card. Here sometimes if you give this credit card to like small store or shop, they said, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot. So, I mean, the tourist has to buy with cash, so he has to bring cash with them.
All right. Well, Fayez, as the Dean Chairman of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce to Egypt, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and good luck with all the projects and everything, and hopefully the economy can get back on its feet.
I hope so, and thank you very much. Thank you.
I guess
this is a wrap
where we end. I guess this is where we end this edition of the Breakfast Show. Noor, thank you very much.
Dina, it was a pleasure.
It was nice
always.
having you. Thank you, Mr. Ezeldin, for giving us some of your time. And
hopefully you enjoyed our segments for this morning, and please don't forget to watch us again tomorrow and every other day from 8:30 to 10 with more on the Breakfast Show. Have a good day.